New Hampshire can help solve climate by acting now. 3,500 U.S. economists say one policy is the best way to solve climate change. They did that in the largest public statement of economists ever, anywhere. That included 33 New Hampshire economists. This policy is called Carbon Fee and Dividend, or Carbon Cashback. One prominent New Hampshire economist who signed that statement is Dartmouth's Professor Charles Wheelan. Listen to what Professor Wheelan has to say. His main point is that the most effective and fair way to solve climate is, first, put on a slowly rising fee on carbon sources, such as coal and oil. Then, number two, send all the money back to citizens in equal shares. Number three, tax products from countries not pricing carbon. So here's what Professor Wheelan has to say.
My name is Charlie Wheelan. I teach public policy at Dartmouth College. I got my PhD from the University of Chicago, and I've spent the last 25 years working on issues related to economics, public policy, finance, and related topics. I ran for Congress in Chicago in 2009 in the special election to replace Rahm Emanuel, and I did endorse a carbon tax in that election. That's the case I want to make today. A carbon tax is the most efficient and arguably the fairest way to change incentives across the economy in ways that will help us address climate change. It is the most powerful way of doing that. It requires the least regulatory intrusion, and it is the most likely policy eventually to attract some Republican support, at least those who are intellectually honest around climate change and those who believe in market-friendly solutions. A carbon tax, or fee, or pollution fee, whatever you want to call it, should be levied as far upstream as possible, which means that the tax is levied where energy is made using fuels that release carbon emissions. It's generally taxed as a fee per ton of carbon emissions. If you make electricity from coal, that's more expensive than if you make it from oil, which is more expensive than natural gas. And of course, if you use renewables or something like that, there may be no carbon fee at all. The most important thing, though, is that all products and services in the economy that use those carbon-based fuels now reflect the price of that carbon pollution. The more intensive the product is with regard to carbon-based energy, the more expensive it becomes. We want people, we need people across the economy to change their behavior. The best way to do that is with prices. We want people to insulate their attics. We want people to drive less. When they do drive, we want them to drive more fuel-efficient vehicles. We want them to air condition their houses less or turn the thermostat down. We want people to carpool. We want people to live closer to where they live. We can't, or at least not reasonably, regulate all of those behaviors. It's not something we would want to do anyway. The power of a carbon tax is that it encourages people to do those things in a market-friendly way. When you go to shop for refrigerators, the one that was manufactured using the least carbon output is now the most attractive from a price standpoint. The one that uses the least energy will cost less to operate. When people walk into a car showroom, they're always choosing the least expensive car, but now they will take the pollution of that car, both operating it and the manufacturing of it, into account. People who care about climate change will change their behavior, and people who don't will also change their behavior. Now, once you change behavior using a carbon tax, you're raising revenue based on the pollution that is generated. There are a number of things you could do with that revenue. You could spend it like any other kind of government revenue. You could use it to offset other taxes. The most politic and arguably the fairest thing to do with the revenue generated by any kind of carbon tax or fee would be to divide it up by the number of eligible tax-paying citizens and return it in the form of a carbon refund on a pro rata basis. Everybody gets the same carbon dividend. There are a number of features that are attractive about that. One is that a drawback of a carbon tax is that it has the potential to be regressive. People who are low income use a higher portion of their income on things like home heating oil, transportation, and the like. However, overall, their carbon footprint is likely to be smaller than average because their consumption is lower. That means that for the typical low-income person, the carbon dividend that they get back is most likely higher than the accumulated fees that they've paid as a result of the carbon tax. For people who are high income, who have large houses, private planes, and the like, their carbon dividend will not offset fully the price that they pay in terms of the carbon tax, and that's okay. This is a tax that is levied most heavily on those who are the biggest polluters and those who have the highest carbon footprint. There's one other important consideration, which is that we should probably levy a border adjustment or a carbon tariff, you can call it again what you like, on imports into the United States based on our estimate of their carbon impact. So for example, if steel is made in Japan or China, we can estimate what the carbon impact of manufacturing that steel is, and we levy a carbon tax on that import that would be similar to the carbon tax in the United States if it had been manufactured in the same way here. That does a number of things. One is it discourages firms from moving their polluting activities offshore. It does not unfairly advantage products from other countries that are polluting. And in the long run, it might encourage countries, certainly the EU, China, the United States, to harmonize their carbon taxes so that there's no longer the need for these kinds of carbon adjustments. Last, I think because this is a relatively market-friendly way to address climate change, if Republicans become serious about dealing with a heating planet, the market-friendly approach of a carbon tax, the fact that you can levy it in one place upstream and change behavior without regulating all of those behaviors should, in theory, be more attractive to those who prefer doing something, but in a market-friendly way. Overall, a carbon tax is, as I said, the most efficient, the most cost-effective, the fairest, and ultimately the most effective way to deal with climate change. And I hope you will take that under consideration. Thank you very much.
Again, the main point of what Professor Wheelan and other economists say is that the most effective and fairest way to solve climate is, first, put on a slowly rising fee on carbon sources, such as coal and oil. 2, send all the money back to citizens in equal shares. And 3, tax products from countries who do not price carbon. We know that Congress is working on new climate legislation right now in March, April, and May of 2021. Some proposals include the effective carbon cashback policy, but others don't. We ask that members of Congress help solve climate by passing legislation for carbon cashback or carbon fee and dividend that includes, again, a slowly rising fee on carbon sources such as coal and oil, giving all the money back to citizens in equal shares, and taxing products from countries who don't price carbon. This video has been put together by the all-volunteer New Hampshire chapters of the Citizens Climate Lobby. Learn about CCL at citizensclimatelobby.org. Thanks very much, and thanks again.